Here we are. Hello, everyone. I hope you're well. Hope you've had a nice Thursday, and I'm looking forward to the weekend. Hopefully, we've still got some stuff on. Can keep ourselves amused. Tonight, I've got Rolain on from Conscious Root. I've known Rolain for quite a few years. We met way back in the music scene. I think one of the first gigs maybe met was at Henry Sellers bar gig or something. But yeah, we're probably just going to sort of go trip down memory lane, talk about music, talk about his new release on Treehold Records, and yeah, going to go for it. I'll just play a wee bit of music and then we'll get rolling on. We are. Hi, Rolain. Welcome to Whistling in the Dark. Thank you very much for coming on the show, my man. How's it going,
How's
my
it going,
friend?
Stuart? What going? Yeah, it's all right. It's been a challenging day, but I'm all right. I'm here. I made it.
You've made it through the day.
It was one of those because you were talking about podcasts, and I thought we were probably doing like an interview over like Skype or something, and I wasn't like really steezing, I'm not like I was gonna get sort of dressed up or anything, but I was just I was so casual about it, and even my missus was like, oh, but I was just like, oh, but it's not like, video. It's not video. And then you like send me the StreamYard link, and I'm realizing it's a live stream thing, and I'm just like, oh, all right, okay.
Sorry, I maybe should have explained beforehand. Yeah, we're kind of like going out live and stuff, but it's all good, man.
It's all good. It's all good. I didn't, sometimes it's live, sometimes it's pre-recorded, but either way, I'm on it. It's all good.
You'll be quite used to it. You've been doing quite a lot of promotion and stuff recently with the new record out. But congratulations, by the way, it's absolutely amazing.
Thank you. That's really thanks. I super appreciate that.
I've had it on this week. I've given it a good listen, and like, I can see why it's resonated so well. And like for me personally, it's just like every track's just got like that. It's like an old school sound, but in like a really high definition type way. So like, There's all these really familiar beats to me and things, but it's like stuff that I haven't heard for ages, but it's like in a fresh way. And I think that's why, for me, it really hits home on the beat side of things. But then the lyrics, it's just so personal, and you really get a story, man. Every song's a story, and that's really difficult to do sometimes. So. Yeah, man, top class.
I appreciate that. appreciate the feedback, man, and I think that's a different thing that I've heard back maybe from the album from um, like, but I do think, like you say, I can connect with that. I think, you know, even as a lyricist, I'm quite classic, like old school, but I try and reinvent it so it doesn't sound too old, you know. So try and, you know, listening to what people are doing in the here and now and translating like vocals to kind of do it in my way, you know. I guess that's what I was trying to do with the album, to be current but not sort of losing any aspect of what I've grown up in enjoying, you know, in music. So,
Yeah,
but yeah,
I feel
no, I
like
appreciate it.
when, like, as I say, when I was introducing there, is like, I think the first time we sort of crossed paths was, I think, through Jose, I think the bass player who plays with Seaback
Yeah,
now.
I mean,
And
he played with more conscious root band for a bit, like when it was a band. I'm an artist now, I'm not a band.
well, yeah,
Having
I
to
wanted
explain
to
all
like
that.
make this clear for everyone. Is
Yeah,
when I met Conscious Root the first time, it was a band, and like, but saying that, I can see like within that time, and then even through like Monosapiens and some of your other handles that you go by, is like this is
yeah,
sort of like amalgamated into this like one solid piece of work, which is like, it's a proper album, man, and you get that nowadays either. It's like, it's an album you can listen to from beginning to end, and it tells a story, and it's like a good experience. And like, you could pick singles out of it, absolutely, but I think it would be difficult to predict what singles it would be because it's such a, like, it's so strong.
thanks, man. Yeah, when we put the work together, it was interesting, like, because we wrote like obviously a lot of songs, not like loads of songs. We wrote actually only one more song was written over the album, which didn't make the album because I didn't really think that it fitted. Um, but everything else was kind of, you know, written. And it was just like a timeline, I guess, of what was going, you know, what was happening for me at that time, and what's the other thing that I was thinking about in terms of sound. Mert had like maybe three different kind of threads of sounds, which I think you hear on the album. There's like a consistency, but there's also a lot of difference. But there's three kind of main threads of sound that he was following, and
Right.
that
Okay.
I think that kind of brought it together. If you I'm trying to think like what tracks kind of fit that. If you like Life in the Rain, Needles, they have that really down tempo, Dem Days,
Yeah,
and
like,
like
with like quite like heavy on the kick drum, like sort of
yeah, I
like
suppose
trap
it's
almost.
maybe like the influences, like he took like lots of different influences from like sort of prog rock and 80s and sort of loads of different kind of things. So
You can hear
and
that in the wee guitar riffy bits and things, especially on the first track. Uh,
yeah,
so that's like, he's
um
into his prog rock and that's cool. That makes
I
sense.
think there's just a lot of I think there's just a lot of different music that he was influenced by, and a lot of like 90s sort of like I think kind of I don't know. You have to speak more with Mert about it because he's got his own like process, but he was very pacific in what he was creating, and I was quite sort of, you know, the album. I think I realized halfway through writing the album that it was pretty dark, and I needed to lighten it up a bit. Um, because it was just pretty dark. Like the life was very dark then, but I wanted to write some tracks that were more like kind of hopeful and a bit more uplifting.
Sure.
So and a bit more playful. So when we wrote tracks like Choo Slug, and I think it had a little bit of that in mind. Like I kind of was looking at what we'd already done and just was like, you know what, I've had yeah, there's a lot of the same narrative, and I want to kind of give that a bit of a break. But and then some of the tracks they just wrote themselves. So um,
That's
like
the
the
best thing, I think. Like, if it's falling out of you, maybe you're quite confident of the work that's coming out. When you say that
yeah,
he's
I
split
just
into the three sort of bits, was that, did you go into it with that idea, or was it like after you had the songs out, you're like, okay, let's split them?
No, I think Mert had like three styles that he was kind of ingrained. Like I think, because he had the drum and bass and the kind of dubsteppy stuff, and that was all kind of in there. Those tracks were all sort of, and maybe the kind of what am I thinking of? Propaganda. So like, that was all the up tempo stuff, and then he had like
Yeah,
some
yeah,
down tempo stuff, and then we had the sort of like, the kind of more souly stuff, which was like your awakening, um, like don't call me, and so there were different kind of threads. They were the kind of three threads, really. I think that, and the other track, I think, I can't even think of the name of the second from last song on the album. It's just a bit like a spoken word piece, but it's quite sort of soulful.
and then was it,
Um,
were they all sort of thrown, then the three styles were all sort of given the same production treatment to sort of help the continuity and overall?
yeah, I think like look, when I got the beats and stuff, they were very just like scratchy ideas, and Mert done a lot of the kind of production after I'd recorded my vocals, and he really pulled it together, like, and changed some tracks were so different. Like I was just like amazed at what he'd done. I think things
Yeah,
like
yeah.
Needles, for instance, when he created like the piano kind of outro, because Needles was just that loop. And actually the original bit that he gave me was just really top heavy, and he changed a lot of that beat. He changed a lot of Needles. Like it was nearly like it had the essence. So I remember him bouncing it back to me, and I was like, "You've taken too much of what I was feeling off the track," and then he went back and had another pass and passed me back, and I was just blown away. So there was a
That's
lot,
cool.
there was a lot of back and forth on certain tracks. On other tracks, it was just like, that's wicked, man. And
Nice.
even with structures and stuff, sometimes he was like changing structures, and I was like, nah. Or sometimes he was doing something with structures that and just giving it a bit more space, and I was like, that's wicked, man. So yeah, there was
Just
a
being
lot of
able to
that.
like to be able to have that person, like if you can have that quick work pace and like get stuff thrown back and forward to each other, and you can start getting through things, uh, it's really rewarding. I find with Needles, that song as well, with the piano and stuff, it's quite haunting. Did he go after some like natural samples and things? Or
Um,
were you just sort of like hunting through banks and stuff to find things that you're like, that's totally banging
I think
sound? I need
everything. I
that.
think I think everything he found was in that kind of free domain, sort of place, or like obviously
Mhm.
stuff that he had before. So we never really used like everything. He kind of took bits and then composed pieces, but it wasn't really like. I don't think, because I generally try and stay away from obviously samples, because they cause you um, issues when you're trying to
Absolutely, yeah.
release music and that. So a lot of the people I work with, I won't work with people that use samples really. Generally, that's something I kind of work with producers who just build
Ah,
their own beats from from
interesting.
from from scratch. And any samples that we did have in the music, we just kind of replaced with like got someone to recreate or do, you know what I mean? I think he did have some
That's
samples in
interesting.
certain.
You attacked it like you wanted to bake it in from the start like that. It's like, okay, if we do
Yeah.
it ourselves and
Well,
get the
Mert's,
same vibe, but then none of the issues, hopefully.
yeah, well, Mert's a very musical guy. Obviously, he's a bass player, and he's good friends with like Dave Wallace and all those guys, all the jazz bar kids, and he's been doing music he's just got a good ear. I mean, he's a bit of a like, I don't know, because I haven't seen Mert play loads, and I know he's quite a good bass player and that, but he's a bit of a jack of all trades. So he's not like the greatest musician in the world, but he's a good musician, and he knows enough of stuff to produce great sounding music. And his music's always very, even like the dark stuff, it's so slick, it's so clean. And it's, I kind of joke about his sort of OCD and how kind of sterile his music is. Like,
I
it's
bet he
just
loves
like,
that. Like,
yeah, it's just like, what I mean, sort of squeaky clean beats.
sure.
But that's the great thing about his sound. He just kind of gets this, his, stuff that he was doing with Dave. That's how I met Mert, really, with the pre Blind Digital. I met Dave through like Super Jam back in the days of the Revelry, and we used to go up and get paid for freestyling for about 2 hours while people were sitting down eating their meals, man. It's crazy.
But you're freestyling whilst poker, like sitting eating their fish and chips and that.
We got paid like every Saturday for going up to this bar, a group of musicians playing funk, like blues, but I was just like freestyling. Like I was freestyle rap. I was sometimes singing blues. I was sometimes, but it was just all off the cuff, man. Honestly, for about
Is
2
that like
hours.
just by the water in Leith?
No, the Revelry is up the bridges, like all the way out. Like you keep going, kind of past Northbridge, Southbridge, right up the top, right up the top, and then as you get before you kind of get right
to Minto almost.
It's on the it's a bar on the left hand side. It used to be, and it just used to. I don't know, like the guy Marcus, who was a sax player. He got the gig for everyone. I met him at Bar 99. Swear the same night I met Danny, or at the time known as Lyrical Licks, but now Danny Ladwa. It's the same time I met him, and basically I've met Marcus, and from that we started doing the Super Jam gigs. He created this kind of, it was good fun, man. It was like we got paid a bit of money, we got some free drinks, and but through that I met Dave, and then I kind of lost touch with everyone when we stopped doing that gig. And then I got an email through just someone going, "Oh, do you want to feature on this track? We're trying to make something." I think it was for some kind of film thing or something. And I was just like, have a punt of it. But that's when I realized I'd met, like, it was Dave and Mert, and then we didn't actually, nothing come of that thing that we'd done, but then we went on to do some stuff. I think the first thing we'd done was like Monster Neck, which was a release we'd done and put out on I can't think what label it was. It was a Croatian label that Dave and that were on. So and that done pretty well, actually. Like Jamie Bostrom done a remix and it was slamming, and that really kind of like that had a lot of like people checking it out,
Nice one. Do you have? I often wonder this because, like, I mean, I'm not the best with my PRS, and
yeah,
do you your PRS well and like upload your works and things, and
I'm getting better through the years, but I don't know. PRS is such a bit. It's the PRS is just not the best. It's the worst set up fucking organization, and they're just like, oh my god, like.
Why do you think that? Just interestingly.
Well, I just think even how it is, how can you, like, because you're supposed to be able to track your radio plays, and it's almost like they've got like radio stations. If they play you, they've got to send a list of PRS, but unless you claim for the stuff your end, it doesn't get to you really. I don't understand that. Like, I don't understand why, if radio stations are doing their job and anyone else is doing their job, their side, like festivals and that, that you're having to, so I think
you have to go and claim your slice of the pie, and if you don't, that pie just stays there anyway.
They just so, and they're not like they're not run by the government on that. They're like a private agency, so they're like and a lot of the time, like even one of my other friends, they pay money, like they just pay it to whatever name, and obviously there's multiple peoples of that name. Sometimes there's multiple artists, so your money might go to another artist. And I had a friend that had this recently, and he was saying, and we said, you've sent our money to the wrong artists, and they've gone, oh, sorry about that. And they're like, well, can you get it back or give it to us? And they were like, oh no, we can't do that. And it's just like, it's just like, what?
Nah. But I agree. I kind of asked that. Like, my experience of it is like a headache every time I go near it, it's not like there's an alternative. And like with streaming the way it is, there's no money to be had there either, really, unless you're like, don't know, like just absolutely kicking ass like worldwide and getting like hundreds of thousands of listens. Then you might start to be able to like.
But that's not even that much money. In 100,000 listens is probably like a ton. It's not a lot of money.
100 quid, yeah. But you might have a few hot months where you have a great like number one in America, and like, but even that, like even your Miley Cyruses of the world who are like sat at the Billboard charts number one, I mean, their royalty checks from Spotify and stuff are probably still quite to be like laughable compared to what they're
Yeah,
used
yeah.
to. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
like
Oh, compared to what they be, it's not covering what they've lost, what they're losing through gigging and all the stuff that comes with that, and what they've lost from the change of MP3 to CD.
yeah,
Even
right.
it's just I don't know. It's a difficult situation, but like, what can you do now that it's this way? It's like there's
I, I, I,
artists needs to think maybe a bit more like businesses, and like put a bit more, like some people are doing the live streaming and that. Some people are doing like live stream gigs, so they've got fans that want to see them and they're going to pay to see that show,
yeah,
and it's a good way. But there's obviously different ways you can monetize yourself. For me, it's not like I've got to a stage with like my art and that I'm not like, I mean, I've had those whims where I'm like, I want to be an artist, but like now I'm like, I want to make music that I like, and I want to release good stuff, and I want to raise my bar, and it's me and my music. It's not about trying to hit time and get that. And that's not saying that I don't obviously want to progress and get more fans and get more notice and get played on better platforms, but it's not my career. So I've got a job and I can focus because I've got a job, and at the moment it pays well. I can kind of invest a little bit more into like my music as well. But also I'd like my music to support itself and like pay into
absolutely.
itself.
I guess
Yeah.
that's the end game for anyone, even at a local level, and like sustaining a lifestyle in a city, say off the back off a music wage, and like
Yeah.
it's not impossible if you get all the right wheels turning. And I wanted to ask you about like True Hold Records. Like, was that set up in sort of
Okay.
like
Yeah.
opposition, or like not in opposition, but maybe as a way of like maintaining control in as a reaction to streaming coming in and things? When did you start that?
I started it after I was doing. I'd set up a project with a rapper called Blasphemous Sinner called U Sonics, and we were like
Mm,
trying to. Obviously, we had a few people at that time that were like we were trying to promote on that platform. It was DJ Prismat, um, um, artist who runs Scoop now, to Susan, who at the time was called One Zoos, and there was someone else as well. But yeah, so we had a wee platform, and we were trying to just like promote a little outfit, and it's more like a releasing entity. We wasn't like, because obviously we wasn't like registered with Company's House and running it like a business, so it
mm-hmm.
was more just like a releasing entity, like a kind of a holding name for a releasing entity. It's just the same with Truehold. I mean, I'm self-employed as well because I've got a counseling business and that I do privately, and that, so I can run it as a self business. No, it's fine because I'm not earning enough for it to be a company. So there's two paths that you can have it, and that's being an independent trader, or you can be a limited company, which
Yeah,
is protected. But if you're not, if it depends what kind of thing you're doing. It's more, all that stuff's about legality anyway. Really, it's like
because
about
legality, I think as well, it's about
liability. It's about liability in case
yeah,
you got sued or something like that. Even in a lot of basic insurance, you can get like um, kind of liability cover in that sort of stuff, which will cover you enough. But anyway, I mean, unless you're like, as I say, staying away from samples,
mm-hmm.
you're not going to get really sued for just writing
Yeah.
some rap tunes.
Yeah,
Hopefully
and
not.
it's almost like, I mean, it's sometimes it's like you just need to create the middleman thing, like the entity, like True Hold Records, which represents like this is us representing like we're going to put out independent music, and this is a place that is possible. And then yeah, like as you say, if you're
Yeah,
not
that's
dealing
it.
with samples and things, then the legalities aren't so much a problem. It's kind of the idea that's infectious, and sort of
Yeah.
allows you to hold more control over things as you go forward. And even talk. I guess even talking to promoters and things, it's like it carries weight as well. That things are coming through the record,
It
like through
does.
hold records as
Yeah.
well. I've experienced that.
It does give you a bit more. It does give you a bit more sort of status than just going, "Hi, I'm
Yeah.
like rapper John, and I've got this thing." It's like, it just gives you a little bit more. People take it a little bit more seriously for
Yeah.
for
And it's
some
a little
reason.
bit of
It's not
effort
any.
as well.
Yeah, I mean, I've been sort of self-releasing. Like I kind of put a post up today, and it was a bit about the kind of conscious shoot sort of. It's funny. The reason why I kind of said it because my one of the old guy that I was in a band called Fugazi Rum, and he
Yeah.
was kind of one of the original MCs in it. He was taking the piss, going, "Oh, I'm glad you cleared that up. I can fucking like sleep at night now." And I still remember you as MC Chad, which was my original first ever MC name was MC Chad.
MC
Chad on the
Chad.
mic, the
Oh no
CHAD.
way, man.
That was back in my DMB days. I know, like hide that
MC
one.
Chad. You should
MC
bring him
Chad.
back, man. I'll
No,
book
Chad.
MC Chad.
That was back in my DMB days. So I wasn't even rapping at that time. And like,
Right,
you know,
right.
when I started doing hip hop and that, like, you know, Mossman
Cool.
Tank was born. But anyway,
How old were you when you were MC Chad, mate?
I think I was about 16. I think I started spitting. Yeah,
Wow.
I was around 16, and I think it kind of maybe come more into fruition. You know, by the time I was 17, 18, I was doing, you know, bits here and there. I was doing some
Where
bits.
were you where were you living when you started spitting for the first
I
time?
was living in the town that I grew up in. But I was a bit well, I was in Buntingford when I started spitting, and it's kind of near Hertford, which is like Hertford was about like 15, 20 minutes in a car up the road, really. And then you got London, like, you know, 40 minutes from where I lived. It's like a
Okay.
commuting town. And Cambridge was about 40 minutes. You know,
Okay.
I could be in like central London within like 50 minutes. You'd be like kind of sort of like, we used to go into like um, when I was hanging out with Ben, who was Huss from Fugazi Rum. He got me involved, obviously, in the studio stuff, and I was a bit messed up at the time and a bit wayward and very very arrogant, very like he was trying to get me in the studio for quite a couple of years, and I was just
Yeah.
like I wasn't
But come on,
interested.
man. You're 16 years old. You gotta like puff the chest a bit. Like
I was about
down in
18 at that
London, right?
time. Yeah.
There'd have been a lot of competition straight away, I'd imagine, and down there.
Well, yeah, I mean, London was a different thing, and that was a sort of a stone throw. It took me work, and Ben was quite good at networking, and he got
Right.
hooked up with like he met like um, Dave online. My mate Dave, who's Chemo Telemachus, who's like quite a big sort of. He's a really well known London producer. He does a lot of stuff with High Focus. Like Dan Baxter, he produces most of his albums.
Right, okay.
He's worked with all the UK, a lot of American hits and stuff. You just go and check him out. His stuff's really dope. And obviously, he kind of does. Telemachus is kind of he's more avant-garde, I'd say, sort of experimental kind of beats. He
Yeah.
kind of samples sounds from different countries and, you know, puts together kind of these really kind of complex instrumentations. And he's very talented beat maker, but a lot of his classic stuff he made name under like Character Assassins artists like Flicks and Manage, and you seeing like, you know, they know Dave. He's the man. Like, and people. He was like good friends with Beat Butcher, and Beat Butcher's now he produces Griselda. Like, he's produced for all the best American artists. He went on to do like really big things, and he's still like
And so
at the moment he's like absolutely killing it. So,
these all guys you sort of like
so
came
these are
up with
guys I met
in
through
London?
like. Well, not like to be honest. Like what happened for me, like I met then, and we'd done really raw stuff for Fugazi Rum, and that's when I met Dave, and we were hanging out, and we were doing some music with him up in London, and we were traveling about like Cardiff, all over the show, sort of doing stuff. And then what happened was Ben kind of had an idea. Ben was always like, he was very almost restless in his music, but also kind of trying to make money out of it. So I think you see that the underground hip hop stuff, there was about like, it was a very small market. So he ended up doing this blues hip hop project, which kind of had more scope. And I felt a bit reluctant to do it at first. And I think there was a project even in between that we done that kind of bridged the gap for it, which was a bit more poppy. We were just experimenting, and I was like young, and he was like he just had ideas and plans, and I just go along with some of it. I'm not saying that all of it was for me, to be honest. And but I think out of all those experiences, I wouldn't have made like the music or the records I have today if I didn't go through those experiences. So I value them, but some of it I think I took. Maybe as a lyricist, I lost a lot of maybe direction and confidence because I became more of a instrument. And after that, I become like a rapper that was just rapping filler parts that sounded nice. And not saying that it didn't have good content and meaning. I think the Fugazi Red album was strong and it had a lot of like influence and good meaning in it, but I think it was just a different path to originally what I was on. But I think I lost the sorry man, go on. I've just
no. I just So what brought you up from London to Edinburgh? Like what was that transition for you? Was it like jobs or like girlfriend or
girlfriend?
Girlfriend,
The music had kind of sort of, it felt to me the project that we were working on, which was the blues hip hop project, we'd had quite a bit of success off the first album, and it had a bit of like airplay on One Extra. We played on Free Counties Radio,
amazing.
BBC Radio Cambridgeshire. We got played on quite a lot. We performed live for them quite a lot. So we were getting pushed about, like, and there was even a lot of hype even up north, and we were traveling around doing gigs all over UK. And it was going all right. And we started writing this second album, and we pretty much finished writing a second album, and recorded a lot of stuff. But there was a lot of maybe dynamics in the band at the time, and I don't know, man. I just was not feeling it was the right energy, and I didn't feel that everyone was in the right. There was too much emphasis on We had our drummer was like Alex Cooper, who was he was a drummer in Katrina and the Waves, and we used to rehearse in the Wave studio, which is like Kimberly Stewart, who wrote Walking on Sunshine. It was his and Alex Yard, and we were in there. Like, it was great. We had this like beautiful space, and like they had a really old vintage desk, which only this one amazing engineer could work. But it was like.
That's always the thing. Is like there's some like 70 grand desk that's from the 70s that only one guy has, and then everyone flocks to him to get like the sound.
Yeah, it was a good experience. It just like, I just think the whole dynamics like of the, listening back to the stuff we were great live, and we made some good music, and we had a lot of fun. And actually I'm trying to egg Ben Smith, who was the singer in the band, because we've got some unreleased material, and at the moment I want to put out. Well, the hope is, if it actually comes into fruition, we're gonna re-release the Red album, because at the moment it's not on like any digital platform. It was distributed by Cargo Records, but for some reason, obviously they maybe discontinued it. So we're going to re-release it, but as a special edition, because we've got some re-recorded stuff that we've done in the studio at the Wave Studio, which is like live and live and overdubbed. So we're gonna re-release that, and then the other plan is we've got a few tracks that never been released, and we're gonna release that as an EP after. But again, it's all in. I'm trying to kind of motivate.
It's all a bit up in the air at the moment as well, in terms of like what's going to happen next year. What's the best way to plan? Like I know I don't. Well, I think I've lost count of how many people were planning to release an album in the last 7 or 8 months. It's quite a lot of
Yeah,
people, and it's like
yeah.
so there'll be an awful lot of music being properly released. I mean,
Hmm.
myself included. I know like Mickey Nines have got an
Cool.
album heading under there, and
Oh,
Gyro Baby
they're
Theory,
amazing.
or like Jackal Trades, or but anyway, everyone's got music like just piling out. So
Yeah,
hopefully, if we can get like maybe half of our festivals back next year, or like just a wee handful actually going ahead, and we can get a sprinkling, that would be nice.
yeah. I'm not sure what I don't know. My focus at the moment isn't like because of what's going on. I'm just focusing on what's possible, and if anything else changes out of that, then I'll focus on that. I'm not really I'm not hedging my bets on what
Absolutely,
I
yeah.
can't see at the moment. And that's not to be pessimistic. It's just to be like realistic of like what I'm doing. And even time, and because of my job role now, I don't even know if like, heading to loads of festivals is going to be viable for me because of the kind of responsibility I have in my job role. So
Yeah.
I'll obviously dip in and out of what I can, but like to be, living the kind of life I was living maybe beforehand and heading to all the festivals and getting mash up and
Mhm.
doing lots of gigs. Well, I was working a lot of festivals, like whether I was doing maybe 2 or 3 gigs or doing some workshops. So it wasn't like crazy, but when I did like let it out a bit, it would be like sort of unwound and um yeah, sort of
They're kind of
a lot
there
of
for that. They're like it's a cathartic thing, the festival. But I agree, like it can distract, especially if you've got work and stuff. Do you want to speak a little bit about the work you do
I mean, I can touch on it.
alongside your music stuff?
Yeah, I mean, my work's been evolving over the last over the last few years. I've been doing a mix of trying to do stuff that really is about my interests rather than just having a job because I need like some cash. So
Yeah,
in the last maybe uh, I suppose when I got to Edinburgh, one of my things was to try and to like get qualified as a therapist. It was kind of one of my aims, and that was a 4 year path. Like, well, I took a year out as well, so it was like 5 years of
right.
like,
So
you
decent
know,
chunk of
uh,
time.
yeah, like studying and like working full time, like trying to do music in the background, doing a full time course, and going through that, and it was really tough. Like I have a lot of learning difficulties as well. So I found, especially the university, I found it really, really challenging to the point where it was pretty distressing. But
Yeah,
I did get through. I crowbarred and got through it, and I passed.
well
I'm
done,
not
man.
sure. I'm not sort of like I'm quite. If I speak about it, I can be very academic. If I try and put it down on paper, it's like I've got a mind of like a 7 year old, and it's quite difficult. So I'd often have to, even when I was writing essays, it was quite frustrating because I'd often have to dumb down my ideas to like articulate them, which was really,
Right.
really frustrating. But you just need to kind of hit the criteria. So, but I was
Mhm.
actually getting quite high marks and stuff actually, which is I was quite surprised about. I fucking like yeah.
Well, I don't
But
know.
yeah, no,
You're a very friendly guy. Like I can like is it? Am I right in thinking is it purely is it like psychological therapy and stuff, or because it
counseling,
was
yeah,
it?
counseling, psychotherapy. I guess
Yeah,
there's loads of different like threads of it, and people maybe get confused of what's what. But counseling psychotherapy is like a talking therapy where you're helping people to talk about feelings, emotions, looking at their thought processes. But also we do work with like psychoeducation, trying to like help them to understand things around attachment theory, help them to understand things around dissociation and all these other things like fight or
cool.
flight. All these kind of there's loads of different other aspects and theories and obviously all the scientific stuff that's coming out now about brain development and that. So there's a lot of polyvagal theory. There's a lot of information and ways that you can use it, and a lot of different models of how you deliver this now. There's so many different, a lot of humanistic models popping up.
Sure.
Um,
And
but yeah,
so
it's just,
like, and so you're in schools. Do you have like a sort of open door
I'm,
policy, or are you like sort of you're given certain students to work with in the school that you're in?
um, I guess, I mean, this role has been new for me. I suppose a little bit of the history of my work. I started off working with survivors of sexual abuse when I was doing my training, and I worked with
Right.
them for maybe 2 years of training, and then I stayed on afterwards and worked for a year as a volunteer, and then I worked at the Junction for a year as a volunteer. After that, like I left safe space and went to the Junction, which is a youth organisation. And through the
Mm-hmm.
Junction, working as a volunteer, I got a paid job working at Young Carers, which is an Edinburgh-based organisation. Well, it's Young Carers. They've got organisations in Scotland, I think, mainly. And I worked in the Edinburgh branch for a year, and then I was working set up a private practice as well. But after that, I just kind of stopped it for about a year and a half to sort some stuff out with myself because I'd been through a lot and I was kind of burning the candles at both ends, and I was doing too much music, doing too much everything. I was doing a lot of workshop work, like with like lyric writing and
Yeah.
performance teaching. So it was just mental, man. I was like
Do you
overstretched, overreaching, partying hard, and it just kind of, I had a lot of mad stuff happen, and it just all kind of collapsed. It all fell apart, mate.
do you
Um,
feel like do you think maybe learning about the psychological therapy and the counselling side of things, do you think it maybe acted as a catalyst for your own sort of um like you're saying you had
well,
that moment, you had
yeah.
that nervous breakdown. Do you think like it was like um it
No,
was
it wasn't
helpful for
that.
you to like get your own stuff together?
Yeah, I mean, it helped. I had to relate. I had to practice. You know, you have to practice what you preach, eh? But that
Mm,
there were so many factors. You know, like sometimes in life, a lot of external things are happening as well as internally, and I was definitely triggered by a lot of things that I experienced over the last wee while. I mean, it's been the last 2 or 3 years. I've been trying to not like put myself back together, but kind of find some strength and some meaning. And you know, I think the album really helped that. To be honest, it kind of, and I think that's why it sounds like it does. You know, because it was a lot
100%.
about. But also, yeah, I just guess like I had quite a lot like in the like few years leading up to that, I'd lost both my mum and adopted dad through quite, and they died very slowly and painfully, and it was not nice to watch. And then I'd had
Sorry to hear that.
my granddad, like my real biological granddad, he passed maybe like he was the closest to pass from that experience. And it was about after a year after that, I think when you kind of lose, not like I had a lot of support from my family in some ways, like granddad was really financially helping. He helped me kind of with my university and stuff, which was,
Hmm.
you know, so gratitude. But I had a lot of time in my life I spent sort of really struggling with on my own. I never really had that family support from my adopted family, so it was quite complex, man. And I just think at that time when I passed my counselling, I'd had a lot of therapy work over the years. I've been in therapy maybe 4 or 5 times, man. I'm not shy to admit that. I think that's what's made me a good therapist as well. It's sort of like I know my struggles, and I still struggle like with mental health and that. But it is about self care and kind of, you know, doing the things in life that help you to keep okay. You know,
Yeah.
um,
What would
so
you say
it's a,
like the basic things that you sort of like, and like, I know like if I'm getting a bit foggy in the head, I'll sort of like I'll maybe make a bit more effort to go walk or get a bit of exercise, or I'll maybe meditate or try and have a bath or something. Just take a bit of time to myself. Make
yeah.
yourself a cup of tea sort of thing. And
Yeah, it's
I'm
all
a
about
bit more
grounding.
mindful of that these days. Like, do you have little tips like that, that you sort of
Yeah, I
like
suppose it's
integrated
just
slowly?
whatever we all know what. Well, I don't know. We've all got things that help us soothe, and we've got other things that trigger us, and you just got to kind of, and other things that kind of, I don't know. I think it's just about like it's a very fast paced information affecting world, then you've just got to take a step back from that and have a listen to yourself. Like, I'm not talking about just your thoughts, but how am I feeling? Is am I anxious? Am I overstimulated? And these kind of things. And it's just about like regulating and grounding all that stuff and giving yourself a bit of space and time. And if you need to kind of let something out, like try not to bottle that, give it some space, give your feelings some space. I feel like sometimes everyone just blocked it all up, and they try, and it's like this mentality that like breaking down is weak and all this, and you can't show your emotions because people are vultures, and which some people are, mate. You got to protect your energy. You got to protect your neck against some people. But then there's other people that you can, So it's knowing, surrounding yourself with the right cats um and the right things in your life that give it meaning, because life's really shit and hard sometimes, a lot of the time. So, and as you get older, it doesn't get that much. I'm not saying that life's horrible, but it's also tough. So you just got to acknowledge that, and it's suffering.
It is, and it's
excellent.
Sort of like facing it head on, and like you say, just being like it took me a while to be able to like spot when a certain emotion, especially if it was a negative one, like to spot it and understand why I was feeling it, and then to sort of use that to like guide my way. And like even things like envy or jealousy or something, you might get a little feel of it in your stomach when you're like watching a film or a TV show or a gig or a band or something. And like to me now, I'm like, when I get that little feeling in my stomach, I'm like, that person, I was doing something that I probably wanted to do myself, and most likely I should go talk to that person straight away, because and then it's sort of like turning the bad one into a good one, ideally, if you can sort of catch it on the way in. But it's a tricky thing. It is a tricky thing.
It's like you're saying, it's sort of like they call it kind of symbolizing. A lot of times we might go through stuff and we don't really understand, why we're feeling certain ways about things, but there's kind of like a storyline that's been kind of misfiled in the body, and you have to kind of, maybe that's what I mean. If you're in your mind all the time and you're not listening to the kind of, the body's got brains and information and knowledge, and if you're not listening to that at all, then you're kind of, it's hard to know yourself, and I guess a lot of the stuff that I do is like working with that, and I'm picking that, but I also find it a lot difficult in myself, so I know it's not an easy journey for people, especially when you've been through a lot of trauma, dissociation, whatnot. It's messy, man. But anyway, let's you move on to some music-y stuff and all that. And like,
absolutely, yeah.
Like,
thanks for sharing that stuff. It does interest me a lot, that side of things, and I knew you got into it like sort of through music therapy. You did a bit of music therapy and things.
I guess music's always been a therapy, and like I've just but like I don't know, like I think I've done it because I needed it, for me really, and then it's good to kind of, the journey of helping others is really sort of self-feeding as well, and I just enjoy the work. It interests me, like on a mental level. I get stimulated, and I'm a nerd when it comes to all those kind of like philosophies and self-help books, as well as the kind of the theory. I really like it. I don't know why. It's just like it just interests me.
I get, well, it's a good segue back. Like you hear those influences in the new album for sure, and the samples and the background noise that you hear. Obviously there's vibes of that sort of spread throughout. When you're like going to like pen something down, or like do you have a few different ways you write, or do you have a preferred way to write? Like say for the new album, for the newest album at least, like how did you sort of tackle that, the lyrics and that, because they seem really refined? Did you go and edit them again, or was it a long process?
I think I normally write a body of the meaning, and then I might pass through, because of like dyslexia now. I kind of write something and then I read it again, and it doesn't make sense, or everything's backwards. So I have to kind of like go in and like make it kind of make sense. But normally, like, I think it just depends really. Some things are most sometimes I write in bits, you know, where I might write some meaning and then I'll leave it and then I'll come back to it and kind of pick up thread. And then sometimes I might write sort of just a track, just, you know, fully.
And it all just
Um,
comes out at once. Like, where did that come
yeah,
from?
yeah, it just depends, I guess, on the kind of I think what had happened in the project is that I'd written a mix of stuff that I was writing for some different, like I think there was two projects. Maybe I was writing an album with the Monosapiens, and I was actually writing an album with this other guy, Mike Stewart. You know Mike Stewart? You probably know Mike. Sync. Used to
Yeah,
do a lot of, yeah. So I was writing a project with him, and so a few of
cool.
the tracks that kind of, and I just kind of I took some of that stuff that it just didn't get used in the end. I don't know, like with everything sort of like, because it was around that time where everything was just getting really messy, and everything just kind of fell away. And um, so there was a couple of tracks out of that project that got added to the album, but I think out of it I only had like 4 tracks, and then I wrote 2, and then it just stopped for like a year and a half, and then I got back, no, maybe a year, and then I just got back
Right.
into writing, and then I
It's quite a
finished the
long break,
album.
though.
So
Like, a year's a long time.
yeah, a year. I took a year, and that was the first time I probably had a year where I hadn't written any music, like in my life. Like since I was about maybe 15, I'd always written music constantly,
Wow.
even if I wasn't releasing it. I'd always just been doing it because it was such a part of my kind of mental health support, you know. So that was quite. I was very low. I actually at that point I was like, I'm not gonna write. I'm not gonna do music again. I'm actually done.
No way.
I was done. Yeah, I was
Really?
actually
Wow.
like, I'm actually like, I've got no energy for it. I feel sick of it. I feel so low. I was so
Dude.
depressed. I had a really bad wobble. Like,
And the thing is, it's like a bad feedback loop at that point because, like as you say, I mean, and like for myself, if I stop writing, I get a bit weird. And if you did that for a whole
yeah,
year, it probably ended up feeding back into the badness. And so do you remember what it was that got
it was.
you writing again, like that first, like when you finally picked
I'm
the
not
pen up
too
again?
sure, but do you know what? I was like, oh, you know what? Through that time, I was just cooking loads, and that really helped. I was just
Right? Yeah.
cooking and cooking, and it just that was the thing at that time. I think I just needed to sort of have a break from it, and the cooking got me through. And then I did start writing again, like slowly. I started looking at the stuff that I'd written. I think that's what
Hmm.
done it. Started
Right.
looking at the
Okay.
stuff that I'd written, and I was like, I need to finish telling this story, you know, what I'm going through. And also I need to understand what I've been going through this last like couple 2 or 3 years. I need to explain it to myself,
Yeah.
and I need to share that. Um, and so I kind of, I suppose it's a bit of a diary and a document to experience and trauma and suffering and losing my shit,
Yeah.
and trying to make sense of it still. And I'm still trying to make sense of it, and I'm still like editing it and jotting it. And but yeah, it's kind of, it's a narrative, isn't it? We all have our own narratives, and people are like, oh, but our artist does that and it sounds samey, and it's just like, well, we're in our loop of our narrative, and we're kind of, we tell that in as many interesting ways as we can. If you listen to
Yeah.
artists, you'll always pick threads of stuff that's repeated in their narrative, and that's okay, because I think that's a good artist, like a good joke teller. He has the same kind of thing, but he just knows
Yeah.
how to keep spinning that same thing in a different, really
They do it
creative
in their
way.
own way and make it their own.
Yeah,
They do.
I think it's okay. People come sometimes want to criticize, but you know, Jay-Z writes tunes about money, bitches, and that, and this artist Nas will write tune about the street and that and that, and you know, Griselda writes tunes about selling dope and slinging this and that will come out in lots of different ways. You know, it's just what people
Yeah.
do.
And the thing, and it's kind of in every city there is that story, regardless. So the story, like if they're storytellers, they're going to tell that story because it's most likely prevalent within every city in the world, to some extent. All these sort
Yeah,
of cliche places. So it's amazing to hear everyone's different versions.
Exactly. It's experience. I feel like it's harsh when people are just so, especially like reviewers and that, they can just be so, artists put a lot of themselves in things and they're just like, you
Who
just
wakes up
done that,
wanting
and
to
it's the
be a
same old.
reviewer though? Like, who are
Yeah,
these
I know,
people?
but
Who are
I
they?
know, I don't know,
I
don't
hate them.
know. Yeah, but it's just sometimes people are just so kind of, I don't know, they just don't like. There's a, it's a person, you know what I mean? There's a lot
Yeah.
more
There's
to.
no need
There's a lot more.
to be a
There's a lot
dick
more.
to a stranger, like, especially when
Not
it might be their life's work and things. You know, it's like, yeah, no time for that, like at all.
not everyone sits down and goes, "Oh, I'm going to write this album because I'm trying to be better than every other artist." Some people are just writing music because they really fucking need to. It's like,
Yeah.
who the fuck are you to start going, "Oh, well, it's quite a good album, but it's not as good as blah 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 Joe blogs," and he hasn't
Based
got a
on my
fast
impression.
skippy narrative like ding dong dooley blow. It's just like, who gives two shits? Like, just appreciate man's putting out some nice music. Yeah, I just find it so funny, even like when people, I mean, I've done it myself when we start going, oh, who's the best rapper or who's the best band? It's just like, there's lots of good music. Just fucking enjoy it. Sit back and enjoy it instead of trying
Yeah,
to like separate or put some next man down just to kind of, we all have, it's so subjective what we like to experience in terms
yeah.
of narrative and music and sound and style. It's like there isn't no like best. There's some things that are incredible and there's some things that are good and there's some things
Do
that you don't want to listen to. Just
do you feel there's that competition within like the hip hop scenes within like Scotland, Edinburgh, Glasgow? Like,
yeah, I mean
do
it
you
is,
feel
it is,
that sort
yeah.
of rivalry at the hip hop level?
I don't know. Like, I don't say I feel rivalry. I feel like encouraged if people are releasing good stuff, and I need to up my
Yeah.
game to kind of make it my music good. I don't feel rivalry because I know that there's some lyricists they've just got something else, like in the difference of what they do, and I really appreciate that. I don't, I'm just about.
Have you felt it on the other side? Like, have you maybe been drawn into stuff because that's
mm,
like the scene has been? I've talked to a few people and they feel like they maybe had to bash heads for no other reason than they're singing hip hop. You
yeah,
know,
I
and it
don't.
comes with the
Well,
territory.
I'm not really a battle rapper, so I don't really get drawn into that. I've know that I've had some like physical altercations with some people because they just got stupid, and I didn't, at that time I didn't even like want to go there. But it gets to a point where someone just doesn't get the message, and then they're coming up to your yard, and then you just got to handle it. And it's
Right.
like,
Yeah.
I don't know, people just think because I'm like nice and do conscious thing that I'm just some mug and I'm a pussy, but they don't know my background or where like what I've been through and what I've gone through and that. So like, although yeah, but also my job's like very sort of, it's police checked and everything. I'm not here to cause drama and get into beef. I'm not interested in that. I'm like 42. I'm a grown man. Like, leave your little petty hip hop beef and take it. I just want to write some good music and release it. Like, that's all I'm here to do. Like, and um I respect all the artists out there, and I think so many artists have got different talents and different things that they bring. And it's just the richness for the scene, for the music, especially like hip hop. It's really about that platform of
Mhm.
artistry and lyricism and stuff like that. So I think it's really encouraging that a lot of people are feeding into that again. And however
So,
they're doing that and expressing that, I think it's really
is there
positive.
anything? Is there anything that's really sort of like twigged your ears up recently, hip hop wise? That's like just like
Just,
sort of like refreshed your appreciation.
just so much, to be honest, especially this year. It's been, and it's hard to kind of get a handle and say who all these people are because I don't always remember. But yeah, there's been so much like great music. I mean, obviously in Scotland, I think in the last 5 years that Scottish scene's just really started to come into its own, and I think it's going to have a lot to give to the rest of the world if it
I hope
carries on the
so.
way it's going. Like, especially the hip hop guys, and I think people like obviously Shogun and Ransom FA, but there's a lot of underground cats. like trying to think of his name, like it's like Pocy Pokey or something his name is, a Podgy or
Okay,
whatever.
yeah.
He's really sick, and there's just a lot like absolutely phenomenal amount of good like up and coming young hip hop, but also some of the older cats. You know, you've got your Loki and your Gasp and your Andrew Mackenzie and Mr. Bose, and they're just really just still they're still bossing it.
I
So
feel like
yeah,
I'm in like my honeymoon phase with a lot of Scottish raps. Like I sort of dipped my toe over the years in different things, and like I absolutely love my hip hop. But there is actually a wealth of rap, Scottish rap. I mean, even if you were just to go through Lockie's back catalogue, it would take you
yeah, like Loki's
quite
got
some time, like to get
yeah,
through it properly. Like Gasp as well,
Gas,
Word, Drew, and all that. Like there's
yeah,
so much to
obviously,
get
like
through.
SOS, I've had quite an affiliation with from the start and stuff, and Drew's
Hmm.
my boy, and he's been very kind of, I think. I think the last project he dropped was him kind of really returning a bit more back to form because I think he's just had a very difficult time over these last few years with, even Jamie Lee, who was his ex-partner and dying, and he's had quite a tough time with his mental health as well. So, and I think because Words is a veteran. He's been around in the Scottish scene, and he's really phenomenally talented. And I'm not sure like everyone gets him in his accent and style and stuff, but yeah,
He's
I mean,
quite. The thing is, he brings that raw intensity. Like when I watch when I watch one of his videos, like it viscerally gets me every time. Like I know when I watch it, even if I've
yeah,
not seen it yet, that it's going to make me feel like whoa. And he's got that
yeah,
impact. But I agree, it's like for some people it's Marmite. Like some folk will really love that, some folk will maybe just not dig
yeah.
it. But it's distinctive.
Yeah,
Like
I think so.
it's really distinctive.
I think the problem is with the hip hop scene. There's a lot of narratives that fly around as well, and you either it's like
What
it's
do you
like
mean?
kind of when you well I suppose when it's like kind of when you're at school, like if you're either in the in crowd or you out, and if you fall out of favor, like what's that like, and
Right,
certain
yeah.
people like certain people, and sort of like it just gets a bit like that's why I kind of just
Cliquey, but
um I've got people that I like the music. I respect them as people, and I just kind of like sometimes I check in and we write some music, or sometimes like we just support each other's stuff. And for me, that's enough. I don't feel like I have to have an affiliation with a certain like. I don't need to be SOS, or I don't need to be the being and all that.
sure.
I'm kind of that's why I created Chew Hold really because I just wanted to kind of get people under people like I like will do some work, I'll release some music, or sometimes other people will release it. I just didn't want to be like I don't want to be stuck thinking, oh, there's blah blah and he's with that lot. And you know, I've even
I always try
took
like it's a bit. It's always been a bit of a crazy minefield for me trying to figure out certain scenes, and the hip hop scene's one of those. And seeing like, and I don't know if you find this too, but like there's a lot of hip hop guys in Scotland that you'll see out on the gigging circuit, and you'll actually catch them at gigs quite often. And then there's a
Mhm.
few like hidden gem recording artists that just stay at home making beats and singing, and
Yeah,
like you don't so much see them at the gigs, but they're like workhorses in terms of putting out material. And
yeah,
I think there's a balance to be struck between the two. Obviously,
totally,
like
totally.
what do
Yeah,
you
and
do you
people,
find like not being in a band now and just doing like doing it yourself, and with you've got like maybe a DJ and things? Do you find it a bit easier, or do you find you're getting offered different gigs and things having changed up the?
I think it's just a different like I'd never say I wouldn't sort of if it lent to it and the situation was right, I wouldn't like try to get some live elements and like play some of the album out, it wouldn't be like I wouldn't
Mhm.
do that. I think it would probably be quite stripped back where it'll probably be something um like live drums, Ableton, and maybe a keyboardist or something, or a
Yeah.
bassist. So like it has a live feel, but also it's quite kind of electronic and to the roots of what it should be. So I wouldn't ever rule that out. But also it's like it has been nice. Maybe I think I was working with the Monos for quite a few years, and I think with bands, the only issue is if you're all on the same page, it can be a really great journey. But if you've got different ideas and things that you want, then sometimes that can be quite frustrating. But I've enjoyed all the experiences that I've had because I think it's taught me a lot about the stuff that I've learned from producers and musicians playing in
Mm-hmm.
bands has been like that kind of knowledge and experience, and just like some of the live gigs the Monos played, like they're a phenomenal
Yeah, I've
band.
seen you guys
Like,
play a few times, like, and you guys were like a really good festival band too. Like, I mean, the recordings are one thing, but obviously, like, for me, a good band has an absolutely awesome recording, but then when you see them live, it's kind of like seeing a totally different band. And like whenever seen you guys, it just
yeah,
like you kicked it up a gear. Like every time I seen you, it just cranked, and like the people were bouncing, and like you just capture folk in the way you
yeah,
should. Like,
we smashed
did you
them
put a
gigs.
lot of
Like,
effort into that stage show, like to get it
I
that
think
refined, or was
I
that just your sort of just
I
the way it
think I
fell out?
think it was just the chemistry that we had, and
Amazing.
that was quite some. That's what I mean. Like Fugazi Run was like that as well. Like I look at some of the old stuff on YouTube and you listen to
Just
it, and it's
fire.
just like it's, it's incredible. Like it was just sounds so good. So I was like, no wonder. It's almost like God. That was such a enjoyable timeline. You know what I mean? Like just like listen to it, and you're just like, wow. Like it's
I
it's
mean,
it's good to experience that. Yeah. So it's different, but I feel what's good. Like I'm on my own, and I'm just doing my music. I'm like rehearsing in my room, and I've got my little PA speaker, and I'm spitting my bars, and I'm enjoying just that. And I've been doing that for a while, and it's not
you
been
can make
about.
your own decisions.
Well, it's not been about I've got to put a performance on for people and all that. It's
Mm.
just like me and my art and spitting my bars. And it's like back being a teenager, when I was just like, it wasn't about kind of, I'm going to sort of, get a slot at this venue or do this gig and stuff like that. And I feel like that's been a nice return for me, because I think like in the middle of it you do get a bit lost with like what you should be doing and expectations and keeping up with the scene and keeping up with the Joneses, and it's just like
Yeah.
honestly
And then
just
also like certain habits can set in if you're like sort of frequenting venues on a weekly basis, and you get sort of roped into the scene and the people and the drugs and the drinking and the smoking and all the sort of bad
yeah,
things. At least that's what happened to me through
yeah,
my 20s, and it all sort of caught up with me when I
yeah,
hit 30. And yeah, it's definitely a thing, even within the smaller circuits. Probably more so within a smaller circuit. You probably can't get away with it as much if you're like on a tour bus all the time, and you're
well, yeah, I
dropping into
mean,
different cities. But yeah, it can be a bit of a trap that way sometimes, I think.
yeah, totally. Obviously, within the industry and with art, you've got artists that are quite kind of, I don't know, we're quite highly wound and a bit highly strung. We're artists because we've got a lot to normally express, and that's sometimes down to like emotional or whatever, or the stuff that we're struggling with. So we're more like if you look at all the studies around like drug abuse and all the alcoholic abuse and that, it would kind of relate to people that are more creative than people that
Mm-hmm.
are more, maybe not saying that there's a predominantly thing, but I just say like it's not like word. I'm trying to find the right words at the moment. It's not far from the thing why you think like a lot of artists are alcoholics and have like drug addiction issues and stuff like that as well. I'm not saying all, but there's quite a lot of
There'd be
people
a
that
higher
have.
correlation of
Oh
people.
yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's what I'm trying to get across in a very clumsy way. It's just like blah, 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 blah.
You're right. No, you've had a long day. I won't keep you too much longer.
Yeah.
I'd like to finish up. Like, for me, like,
Sorry.
for like how you go about actually writing a bar. Like, do you do it in a
Hmm.
formulaic way? Do you like go right? You might hear a certain pentameter rhythm sung in a song. You're like, okay, I want to try and sort of hit those beats. Or do you have do you use numbers, and how do you work together the rhythm of your bars? Or is it a secret? If
I
it's a
just
secret, you don't have to tell.
No,
Like,
it's not. It's
is there a
not.
way you
I've
work
not.
those things together and mix them up? Because I love your rhythms and the way, like I expect it's going one way, and I'm really like sort of sitting with it, and then it just sort of flips, but it still is catchy and it keeps the flow. And I love that, man. It's hard to keep the flow.
I maybe try and stay away. I mean, I don't know. It kind of flips and changes, but I try and stay away from sometimes trying to like rhyme too much and rhyme too obviously. And then, but I think a lot of my stuff is always around meaning. So the rhythms normally come from the meaning of what I'm saying, and maybe even though like a rap, I feel like I'm maybe more poetic than like it's like it's not always formulated in like rap. Maybe it's kind of like a mix of poetry, a mix of rap, a mix of a lot of different influences. But sometimes I do hear certain
You do a
patterns.
lot of
I like
sort of like word painting and stuff as well. Like,
yeah, I like to paint visual. I think a bit like visually. I tell you what, like there's some. It's just I'm just gonna like there's some bits that I've been working on, and
hit me.
it's just about it's not like I'm going to do a lot of it, just a bit. And again, it's just like um, it's hard because when I formulate things, I don't really think about like I'm formulating it. I just kind of do it, and then
Yeah.
it kind of it finds its way. I think that a lot of that comes from even like doing therapy work. A lot of it you just got to kind of like trust in the process. Just like
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah. And
yeah.
just do it as well. Remember to like keep doing it regardless.
Yeah,
Even if you
but
know you're going to make something rubbish, just get
yeah,
it done.
there's just like I like to play. I like the patterns to be quite odd, and I like the. It's almost got to have a sound of something that sounds classic, but is not. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's sort of like
That's what kind of what I was getting at is like for me there was like familiar flows which would like I'm like yeah you know like you sort of get into it and then it just flips but the thing it flips to is also kind of familiar and it's like uh yeah I don't like it's sat well with me because like I'm a bit if things are jagged and just like sort of forced even
mm,
like rhyming wise it sort of puts me off but that can totally be fixed for with melody and like story and word painting and things like that. I think you do a good job of that.
yeah. I think it's always a mix. I was just trying to find a thing without going deep into something.
Go for it.
I think I'm just going to spit actually kind of like a bit of a middle of a bar because instead of starting at the thing, so is it pave so paved so elusive, enslaved so inclusive, like rave notes abuses, a heavy toned conduct, living memory of trauma like bomb struck, a wrong note, the reverberation detached from the here and now, sincere and foul. I see structures mutate, deleted through textures, weaving through shapes, the ripest death, bone traces of the life what's left, contrast of what's gone past, silhouette shapes a crime scene where life dreams were slain to meet a fate, greater past the evil being streets await, talking darker depths, tinted like the Magna Carta specs, ratio with data flow, wave rivers and crashes like the sample cliffs descended with us, ears trem back for culture, something similar, days recognized, interfere like hieroglyphs, the second eyes, minute on the two hands they came to weaponize, then they like to arrest, silent the development and striking the oppressed. It's just like things like that. I like doing, I like spitting stuff like that, basically. Kind of
I love it,
mix.
man. Especially stuff like the hieroglyphics and like working in. Do you try and like paint in like your sort of passions outside of like the I guess like the sort of like therapy and side of things? Do you try and work in like particular uh interests you have like into your
Yeah,
lyrics as well?
I try to. I think there's lots of different symbolism and of stuff of things that I'm going through, and um, I'm not good at like there's certain rappers that are very good at kind of naming things that are very relevant that are going on and or like they're good at phrasing kind of quite famous people in kind of acts they did and like referencing like almost that rap reference. I think it's something that I'd like to kind
Right,
of
yeah.
learn a little bit more of and influenced
Okay.
in, but I'm quite like I know my strengths are maybe talking about self-experience but also maybe weaving in different kind of like old school kind of I don't know, that kind of otherworldly stuff. I
I,
like
I feel
connecting to
like
that.
you pick the right metaphors for the sort of personal story you're telling. I think that's
Yeah,
what I'm trying to get at.
yeah.
Like the and I don't know, like I totally love words, and I love writing poems, and I love sitting down and just playing with lyrics and things. It's a joy to do, and like just finding new words to rhyme even can be quite fun. Do you
Oh
like
yeah.
are you constantly just switched on, like, you know, you like for finding new things to work with, like lyrically,
Um,
like
I I think I've probably got like I think I should if I used to freestyle a lot more when I was younger and play around with things a lot more when I was younger, and I think as I'm got older I've maybe got worse at it, but then maybe also I feel a bit more, what's the word, it's like I can get it right, like I can kind of do what I want to do, and I know the direction that I want to go in a bit more
yeah,
clearly. So maybe that although yeah, sometimes you can do certain stuff that opens certain doorways of thinking, you know what I mean, like taking you out of your normal like thought process,
yeah,
and those things have sometimes kind of clicked something in a direction, and then otherwise like you influences of other people and what they're doing with their styles, and you're like, oh, I really like that, not kind of, it's just kind of hearing something and going, all right, okay, and thinking about how they're doing it. And sometimes even when you start to analyze what others are doing in different ways, then you start spitting and again, and your style's almost starting to change in a different direction and a different way of
almost
thinking.
through doing it. Is I wondered,
Well,
like,
just
'cause
through,
obviously
just yeah,
you
just through the
mentioned
influences.
like like having issues with dyslexia, and I'm like,
Mm,
so the ways in which you find your words would, like what you say, there's interested me because you sort of tying it, you're pulling from all these other different places.
mm.
And do you think that having dyslexia has maybe helped in a way because you've
Yeah, I think it puts an odd spin on things. It's like,
mhm.
yeah, I mean, it has its ups and downs, I guess. Like even when I'm trying to remember like lyrics, and when I spit lyrics, sometimes I spit them back to front, like I spit the wrong verse in the wrong place, and sort of like I have issues like that, and I find my memory, like short-term memory, is a really bad thing with dyslexia. If you learn a song really well, normally it cakes, but to kind of learn, it takes me ages to learn songs and things like that, and it gets quite
Wow.
frustrating. But I have to work like really hard to like ground my lyrics and learn. I'm still trying to learn my album. Like I still don't know all the songs, and I'm still trying to learn like over. I mean, I think
Yeah.
I'm not going to be doing the whole album, but I'm still trying to learn it. It's a long process, and because I don't have a lot of time, because I'm like working a lot, and when I do have time, it's just like finding time to rehearse, and then living with flatmates and having to be considerate to not um,
Yeah.
affect their space and stuff. So yeah, I mean, but it's like anything, because I'm trying to write I'm trying to write lyrics, I'm trying to make new songs, I'm trying to learn old stuff, I'm trying to promote my album. Like I'm everything. I do everything.
It's
Like
like
I'm
you're saying
I'm the PR
you've
I'm the
become the
PR
chef
guy.
of your own music career.
Well, it's just it's hard when you're doing every base of it. Like I write the biog, I do the PR, I put the video together. Like I get all the aspects, everything that's about releasing a project. I have to organize, and when it goes out, I normally do a lot of promoting alongside it. It's just a lot of work. Like it's a lot of admin. People wouldn't understand. Like, but
Yeah, it
if you don't
is.
promote yourself in the right way, that's kind of why maybe people are seeing now. They're like, okay, like Conscious Root is doing well, but like that's just been a lot of in the background, building relationships, working with people, and going, look, this. I'm going to be doing this. Can you give me a hand with this? And like, speaking to reviewers, building connections, networking. It's a lot of work and a lot of
Putting it
admin.
all
Even
in.
put the press back together. It was serious work putting the album press back together, and all the photo shoot, the videos, like shot 4 videos, like not simple videos. It
Yeah,
was
yeah.
and it was lockdown. It was a nightmare. Honestly, it was such a headache. It was like, Oh, it's such a headache.
Not a fun time to actually try and do anything or like try and organize anything like that. So the fact you managed to get
No,
together, like, wow. Um,
yeah,
what have you got? What have you got coming up? I seen you're doing a stream of sketches. Is it this Sunday? Is it?
yeah. I'm also I'm on Texture Show on Sunday as well. So I'm doing a live stream at Sketches gig, and I'm on Texture
Mhm.
Show that Sunday. Um, After that, I haven't like I'm waiting to hear back from some things. There's some opportunities like come up. There's a few bits that I've been like coming up. I'm doing it. I've got to write a song for a video game. Um,
Ooh, what
I'm not
video
sure
game?
what. I actually don't know, but the people are just they're like with a publishing company who does that thing, and they've asked me to
Amazing.
do something. So
I hope
um,
it's an awesome game.
yeah, I mean that would be cool. So it's just it would help to know because then I could be more specific about the content and stuff. But
Right,
but
yeah,
it's fine. I'm just gonna write like a cool
yeah.
tune with a few different like narratives that relate to what I do, but also relate to that kind of thing. So I've got kind of some ideas.
Nice.
But yeah, I've got I done I've got something in the pipeline. I hope if it comes into fruition, it'll be good because it means that I'll have some live performances on telly. And that's sort of in the pipeline. I can't really talk too much about that until it's actually all goes, But
Sure. That's
um,
exciting though. Like I
yeah,
feel a lot of things are heading sort of that mass media direction. A lot of things obviously streaming now, and everyone's tackling that. And so there's like this sort of big boom in that industry. So I think a
yeah,
lot of the gigs and offerings over the next year will be in that sort of framework. I think.
yeah. I seem to be kind of getting into the right sort of like crowd of people who are kind of upstream, and they're quite, a lot of them, even some of them are like they know kind of they're working with like Grammy award winning people or people that are like signed to majors, and they're quite interested in my stuff. They're quite interested in me featuring on their stuff. Again, which is really good, and they're quite plugged into a lot of the big scenes and stuff. So and I, like for me, it's just a bit like if I like what they're doing and I can do something, I'm not gonna just write music that I don't like. So I'm quite
Yeah,
aware of
man.
that.
Well,
Um,
I see it going really well, man. Like I hope it keeps building momentum like it's doing, and it keeps attracting more eyes. And I've got no doubt that those Grammy Award folk will want to do some work with you. And like, don't you find it's like building momentum is probably the key in the scene.
yeah,
And like
it is a bit
when
like
you've
that.
got a bit of momentum, more opportunities can sort of come your way, and hopefully you can take them when they do arrive, and you're sort of ready for them. Um, but
Yeah, I think
I
so.
feel like this
And
is like part of this, like the momentum you're gaining right now. I can see it just snowballing and getting bigger and bigger, man.
yeah, we'll see. I think my main focus at the moment is just like I've got like I'm working on some new material. Like I've written quite a bit of little bits of stuff, and I'm doing some collab work with some different artists, some from Scotland, some from UK, and I'm doing some solo stuff that I'm going to put out, like more like some like mini EPs, like 3-track EPs. Like I think I'm going to do about 3 of those next year, and I've got like
Sweet.
some singles as well. So, and I'm just enjoying the music that I'm making. I think that's at the moment. I just want to focus on making music I enjoy, and if people are feeling it and like wanting to support that as well, that's cool. Like it's all good. Which at the
Cool, man.
moment people seem to be. So that's all good. Like and respect to all the people that are tuning in and are enjoying what I'm doing. Like it's been a long journey, and it's going to be a longer one. But still, I just want to kind of enjoy the here and now and the journey instead of sort of thinking the past. When you're munching at the bit and thinking about, oh,
Looking
when
too
I get
far
this,
ahead
I'm
is
gonna
the
be.
problem normally. Like
Yeah,
we have our binoculars out, going like, "What are we trying to get to?" Like it can be
yeah, and
difficult.
I'm just a bit like, I think it's when you get to that stage and you get kind of, you get that, you get past that, and you're like, I just want to do this now. That's when things become better. Like
Yeah,
it's just in general, whether you're successful with it or not is another thing. But I just think that's when it's better.
Well, the main thing, I think that certainly came through, man. Like you can tell you really enjoyed doing this record, and it was very personal. And I'm gonna have it on probably the rest of the week. Enjoying
I
listening
appreciate
to
that. I
it.
appreciate you getting in touch, man, and reconnecting as well. It has
Yeah.
been long, and
We're
you know,
saying
as
that
we
before we started tonight. We had a quick chat, and we're saying we haven't seen each other for way too long. It's probably maybe at Kelburn or something like that.
yeah.
That we last bumped into each other. So yeah, it's good to reconnect, man, and keep in touch. Let me know what you've got coming out and things. Where can folk find your album? And then what do you want to just tell folk where your streams are again on Sunday, where they can find those?
Well, if you like up the Conscious Root page on Facebook, it's the best place to maybe track it. If you're not already friends with me on Facebook, then you can just look at my personal page. Obviously, I'll be sharing some links for the stream. That's like Sketchy Beats. Yeah, we'll see how that gig goes. It's the first time that I've done a live gig for probably about 2 or 3 years, because I stopped gigging before COVID, maybe a
Wow,
couple of years before, and then yeah, so I haven't really done any live stuff for absolute ages. So,
that'll be exciting.
but
I'll
you'll
be tuning in, man. I definitely want to see and
but
hear
yeah,
what's going
you can
on.
catch the album on the normal platforms like Bandcamp and Spotify and
Hmm.
iTunes and all the big and there's lots of like nice videos on YouTube, and you can listen to the album on YouTube as well. So
Well,
check it
and
out.
I'll
It's
post
called,
all those links on the Whistling in the Dark and the sound pages over the next few days as well. So if you're
yeah,
watching after
cool,
the
cool.
fact and you want links, just go to my page as well. I'll stick them on there for everyone.
Yeah, cool. So
Uh,
just one at you back at you, man. You said that you got some another album in the pipeline. Is that with the full band, or are you working on a sort of side project?
I've got like a band, a three-piece band, which is sort of mate that I've been working with since I was like 14. He's a high school
Okay,
friend of mine, which we're putting together, and that's quite like rootsy, acoustic, bluesy type music. And
cool.
then I'm also working. Do you know Stevie Creed, the Brooklyn Scotsman
Yeah,
dude?
yeah, 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 yeah.
Um, I'm
Yeah,
doing some work with
I know
him at the
Steve.
moment. We're doing some collaborative work. We're trying to use the loop pedal to make some tunes and like put a. We're just trying to get a stage show together to hit the festival circuit when it's open. Probably dip our toe
Okay.
this year, by next year coming, and then try and book some gigs further afield, maybe
Mhm.
internationally the year after if things are tight enough. And yeah,
Yeah.
so that's exciting for me. Like I like
If-
it'd be nice as well because we're trying to like really restrict everything. Like might even just end up being the two of us doing some of the shows so that we can control it and take more of the opportunities and things. So yeah, that's
yeah,
kind
I
of
mean,
what I've got
sometimes
going on at the moment, man.
it's especially like nowadays with all the kind of like you don't know how it's going to go, and it's quite a more less. I think less is more. I think moving forward, and
Totally,
just
it's
to kind of
too
just to
many moving
acknowledge,
things. It's like
yeah,
it
like
can get a
Stevie
bit
Creed's
much.
very good at. He's very good at kind of getting promo and publicizing himself. Like he's been even though like I never really see him like central to the Scottish scene, like but he's always like there doing his own thing in quite a big way. Like
Absolutely.
obviously it's just
I,
it's funny how some people see it in different pockets in the scene, but they're also there's a lot of people doing different things in different directions, but are actually they're doing really well for themselves, and I think it's just really encouraging, man. You know, like that.
I agree. Like,
Yeah,
I remember, like, he turned my head, and I had never seen him at a festival or anything. But I'm like, wow, you're selling out liquid rooms. That's amazing. And he is a big inspiration for myself. But the plan is really, with me getting involved, is we're like, hopefully, you'll see Stevie Creed hitting all the festivals over the next couple of years. So maybe we could do some collabs, man. We could, if you end up with some festival slots that are at the same time, we'll do
yeah.
something together. That would be cool.
Yeah, I think I've supported him before at one of his liquid room events. Actually, I
You
was
said that, yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Brilliant,
yeah.
man.
Definitely. Okay, man. Should we call it? Because I am
Yeah,
sort of
yeah. No worries. Thank you
I'm
so much for
starting
taking the
to feel
time. I
like
know, like, it's been a long, long day for you, and it's like,
mate.
a lot
I've
of
had
words and a lot of questions from me. So thanks for being so patient
yeah,
with me,
it's
dude.
been,
I appreciate
been
it.
crazy today. I've had some child protection stuff, and it's been like off the hook, but it's cool,
Mm.
man. It's like nurturing what
Sending my love to you, man.
yeah. Anyway, I'll catch you. I'll catch you on the flip side, and thank you again for a giving the album some love and b getting us involved. Like it's been nice to get a wee yarn. All
My
that.
pleasure, man. My pleasure. I hope you have a nice evening and keep in touch, mate. I'll talk to you soon.
Oh, see ya. Peace.
Peace out, man. Thanks so much, Rolain. That was great to catch up. As usual, tomorrow night we got Jamie from Jamie and Shuni, and then we got some other stuff lined up for next week, but I don't have any information on that yet. I hope you all have a wonderful Thursday evening. Take it easy.